Rania.
And I'm Ismail.
And this is the Happy Marriage Podcast. The podcast to help you not only make your marriage work, but make it thrive. Welcome to today's episode. What is a happy marriage anyway? So, people talk about living happily married, and we tell people, I hope you live happily ever after. So, what does that even mean? I thought this would be a perfect starting point for our first sort of official episode after our pilot. This is the Happy Marriage Podcast. So what is a happy marriage?
Well, a happy marriage to me is when there is a high level of synergy between two people who are in love and who have a lot of respect and admiration for one another. And I think that is something that is it takes a lot of work. It takes some effort on both sides, conscious effort, because synergy doesn't just happen because you're in love. It happens because you're consciously working towards it, and through experimenting with being oneself and trying to be true to yourself, we basically are going through a lot of situations of open and honest communication where we, with the intention of building that synergy. But when you get there, or on your journey to get there, I think in the end, what makes it happy is that you're able to synergize and you're able to resolve conflict as quickly as possible, and you're able to more agree on things. And even when you do disagree, you're pretty much able to, get to a resolution right away, almost right away. But most importantly, I think you're also there is the ability to be true to yourself, and be able to be more comfortable with your spouse rather than with other people. I mean, that's how I feel, at least. I mean, that's how it is for me.
With yourself first, even.
I think that's, yes, definitely something that, again, that's also a lot of work, because many of us are not even comfortable in our own skin. So I think working on oneself is what eventually makes it better for the couple.
Right. Yeah. So that's, I agree that if we're talking about happy marriage, and marriage is two people, then by default, happy people, are sort of the building blocks of a happy marriage.
Yeah.
So then I think it comes down to first happy people. So for each individual in the relationship or in the marriage to be working on, to be visualizing, understanding first themselves, and then understanding what happiness means to them, and working towards that.
Yeah, and
then we come together.
Yeah, I think it at least for me, I mean, I wasn't aware that it is definitely a very big thing for one to understand your own self, to be aware of what works and what does not work for you, so that you're then able to sort of understand when things are going well, why they're going well, because they are true to you. When things aren't going well, they're not going well because there's somehow something that is conflicting inside. And I think part of my journey into making this marriage work really well is for me to understand my own self. And it was when we were doing our NLP courses that I realized for the first time that a lot of people have a lot of issues that they don't discuss. Tons of issues. And it's amazing how people inside could be so...
There's a lot going on.
And they're very uncomfortable, and they're unable to identify what's wrong. And I think one should go on a journey of self-discovery at any time, actually, before, during being married, but
throughout life.
It is a journey of evolution, and sometimes there is some revolution within that journey, so that you can basically move to the higher level of yourself. But being happy alone or within yourself is definitely a very important to becoming a happy couple.
Yeah, and it's, I think what I want to say here is, and that's obviously I'm a happiness consultant, so talking about happiness is really important to me. I enjoy it, but one of the first things I want to say about that is that happiness is our responsibility.
Mm-hmm.
So my happiness is my responsibility.
Mm-hmm.
It's not your responsibility, and vice versa.
Yeah, and it takes a while for a couple to realize that.
Yeah, because I used to like at the very beginning, I used to feel like, you need to make me happy.
Yes. Yeah.
And I remember that I used to, when I wasn't working, so there was only like maybe a year
I think. Yeah.
in our marriage when I wasn't working.
Mm.
But I'm sure I used to drive you crazy because I remember,
Yes.
I remember I would be sitting at home the whole day, and it's like the day doesn't end. It's just, it's so many hours and you're still not home, and I'm like, I want to be entertained. This isn't what I signed up for.
Right.
What is this? I mean, we're married. I'm supposed to be seeing him. We're supposed to be enjoying time together, and that wasn't happening at all. And I was obviously not fulfilling myself, so I was bored. And I used to call him so many times. I used to call you so many times during the day. Like, when are you coming? And then he would tell me he's coming at a certain time, and then he wouldn't come at that time. And I would wait, and he still didn't come. And I call again. When are you coming? It's just something came up, and I got really busy, but I'll be coming, at 5 or whatever. And then he still doesn't come at 5. It was crazy. I was driving him crazy, and I was feeling like I'm alone. This marriage, I'm all alone. And I remember when I first started working, I started my own business. First, I had a job, I think, and then I started my own business. And I just realized when I started my own business, oh my goodness, the day would just, because I guess I was in flow, so time would just pass. And of course, I wouldn't remember, to look at my watch and to go home at the time I said. And I realized, oh my God, that's where you were coming from. Mm-hmm. Yeah, it was easy somebody comes in and then you're doing something and you're excited about it and you're in a meeting and you lose track of time. And the other thing I realized, and that was really important, that I would come home so tired, so exhausted. I just wanted to rest and do nothing, which is what you were like. So you would come home tired and exhausted. Mm-hmm. You really didn't want to do anything. And I would be like, okay, now the day is going to start because there's this guy who's going to make me happy, and this is what I got married for, and we're going to start doing something fun at least. Yeah. At least we're going to be like, even if we're not going to go out, at least we're going to talk, do something fun. But then, like, you didn't want to talk.
No, not after a long day.
Yeah, and it took me a long time. It probably took me years to understand this and to experience it myself first. And maybe not everybody will. So for those who aren't going to experience it yourself, maybe it's nice to hear the perspectives. But yeah, I stopped driving you crazy. I stopped calling you all the time, asking you when you're going to come home. And most importantly, I stopped expecting you to deliver something to me the minute you get home. Mm-hmm. And I also stopped throwing all the day's problems at you the minute you got home. Mm-hmm. So we probably do a whole episode on the mistakes I used to make, kind of thing. But not just me, I mean, like both of us. Yeah. But back to the topic of happiness, though. So then, therefore, when I took charge, not that I was consciously taking charge of my happiness at the time, I now am consciously taking charge of my happiness. At the time, I was just probably trying to fill this void of what am I going to do with my day. Mm. So when I did, though, take charge and start doing something with my life, with my time that fulfills me, it took the weight off of you. Yes. To be needing to do that for me. And so what I want to say is it's really up to each person to find what fulfills you, what gives you a sense of purpose, a sense of meaning, what's enjoyable to you, what's happy to you, and to be working towards that, irrespective of whether you're married or not. To be working towards that life that seems so nice to you, even if it seems unattainable right now, but it's purposeful and pleasurable at the same time, and to be really working towards that. So when you have two people who are individually taking charge of their own happiness through their thoughts, through their actions, and then coming together, and then communicating, and that's the next episode, communicating those desires, those needs, those boundaries, even those expectations, which expectations tend to get us in trouble. Yeah. We can do a whole episode on expectations later, but sometimes we have them. We're human, and we still have them.
I think we always have expectations, and people unconsciously will be expecting something out of their spouse, and sometimes you're over expecting of yourself, and you're actually putting yourself under pressure and hence putting the relationship under pressure. But back to synergy, I think one of the main core reasons for people being able to synergize well is to agree on core values.
Yes.
And I think you need to identify your own first, so that you're able to sort of express yourself well and be able to understand the priority, which one of your values is comes first and that is really important to you, and which one may be last on the list. I think we did that pretty well before we got married, and every time we had a conflict, that foundation of agreeing on core values, even if they're not similar, but we know what we each value and what we each do not value at all. And I think agreeing on those two things.
Yeah, we talked a lot about things like that before we got married, and so that's what helped us. Because a lot of married couples say that they discovered new things about each other when they got married, like major things, and we didn't have that.
No.
Because we were so in tune, and we had so many conversations that were actually meaningful conversations, not just I love you and all the fun stuff. It wasn't like that. It was
I think it's definitely a tip for any new couple or a couple that is getting married, is to definitely make sure that you discuss everything that is important to you. I mean, so that you do not discover major things after getting committed, or after committing to.
It sounds like getting committed. Sounds like jail or something.
Yeah, getting committed. No, I meant after committing to marriage, for example. So yeah, I mean, agreeing on core values is important. Expressing what you like very much, that's besides core values, like as in your lifestyle. What do you like to do? What you definitely will not do. I mean, be it a sport or whatever it is you're very interested in or very disinterested in. You need to discuss a lot of what you as a person value or not value. You need to be basically very open and honest about who you are. So
even if you're still figuring it out, because we kind of are always sort of still sometimes figuring ourselves out, but at that moment, expressing your true self, to the extent,
and also understand that you will always, that may be misunderstood, but you're always changing. So whoever you are today may not be who you're going to be in 10 or 15 or 20 years, and that, again, when you are aware that some things about you are changing, to talk about them and to express them, and to notice when the other person is changing, and discuss that as well. I think a happy relationship or a happy marriage is a result of being aware of what's going on inside and what's going on inside the other person, and being able to talk about it. Therefore, not leaving something, like the elephant in the room, there that we both know exists, but we don't want to talk about it. I think a major reason for couples getting along is open and honest communication, conflict resolution that is almost, like I said, instant. I mean, I spoke about that incident that happened. I don't know if I mentioned this in our first episode, but
that we resolve things before we sleep.
I might have mentioned that.
Yeah, and so I agree that. So if we go back to, again, what is a happy marriage anyway? So we talked about getting to know yourself, getting to understand what happiness means to you as an individual, and then bringing that into the relationship, and then sharing that as a couple and discussing that with each other, and continuously doing that as we change and evolve. Okay, and then maybe we can add to that as well, that then visualizing the actual happy marriage as a couple, so that it actually comes out of those two separate sort of visions of what life is like. Then there can come this, this is where we are as a couple. This is what happy marriage looks like to us, and that can be an exercise that we do regularly. We don't actually do that because I guess we've been together for so long, and we've done so much communicating about what we want, so we kind of tend to want the same things. We tend to want our idea of a perfect evening, or a perfect holiday. Not that there's perfect. I'm not saying perfect that there is perfection, but I mean, if you're going to be dreaming, so your idea of like the ideal holiday or the ideal dinner out or whatever tends to be very similar.
I think it tends to be very similar again because of the way we communicate.
Yeah.
Because I'm sure the first time we met
May not have been
may
similar
not have
at
been
all.
so similar.
Yeah.
It's just that because we have very different backgrounds. I mean,
Yeah.
But I think it's because of how we communicate and communicates. Our communication has become so efficient that we're able to, over 30 plus years, be where we are today, which was we have a lot of things that we enjoy together.
Yeah.
And I think actually I used to visualize when I was a teenager. That's maybe something that you hear for the first time. That I've always, as a teenager, I remember 13, 14, 15 maybe, I always imagined having a love story like in the movies. That I was with the love of my life for happily ever after. And that was a big thing for me, that I'm not just going to be with anybody. I know I want to be with somebody that is going to be beautiful. And that thought was not there when we met. I mean, I wasn't like trying to achieve it, so I wasn't consciously doing it.
Yeah.
But every time I think of why this worked so well, part of the visioning component of it comes back is that's what I wanted, as a teenager. And I guess unconsciously I'm working towards it.
Yeah, that's funny because I was the opposite.
Mm-hmm.
So when I met you, the last thing I wanted was to be with somebody or to I was 18 years old and I was very clear that I have no interest at all in getting involved until I finish university, start a career. That's what I was saying at the time. And so you came actually to just change everything that I thought I wanted. And then I soon found out that that's what I thought I wanted wasn't what I wanted, and this is what I wanted. And so then I put all my heart and soul and effort into that. And actually, it was just from that first night that I even went home and I told my mom, okay, I met this guy and he's amazing. And so I kind of knew it, but that's interesting because it kind of shows that when you visualize things and want them and work towards them, you can get them. And then sometimes you visualize things, but something else, life just throws you something else, and then it's up to you to decide, hey, do I want that instead? And for me it was more like that, and I was like, yeah, I want that instead. Forget the whole finish university thing and start my career and all that. No, I want, this is here now.
And you ended up with a fantastic career as well. So I mean,
and I did both. Yes, exactly. I just didn't do them in the same order.
Yeah.
But I this was like an opportunity that presented itself. Yeah. And so I'm glad
For me too, actually, it was an excellent opportunity.
But
we're not going to tell them what you did to me those first few months.
No, we can save that for another episode.
Horrific, but it's okay.
I was just being who I was then, and I was
we're
shy.
We're not going to tell them now.
We can tell you later.
We can tell you later.
Tell us if you want to know. Okay. But so for us, it's, and I think you said that at some point. First you said when you get there, and then you changed it to the journey, because we need to remember, it isn't like, okay, now we have a happy marriage. It's just, it is a journey.
It is a journey.
And I think it's been a happy marriage, but that doesn't mean that it's always been great. And so again, that takes us back to, how do you define happiness in the first place? What is happiness and what isn't happiness? And happiness isn't feeling good all the time. Happiness isn't that everything is going exactly the way you planned it and that, there are no disappointments, and that's not what happiness is. Happiness is taking the good with the bad. Happiness is making the most of whatever is in that moment before judging it and labeling it and making it what it may not be. So happiness is having the ups and downs, having some arguments, having some disappointments, but most of the time using those even to fuel the relationship, using those even to build even better bond, an even stronger bond. Happiness is going to include making mistakes, having misunderstandings, but then you come back to the purpose for why we're together. You come back to the emotions. you come back to anything you can hold on to, and sometimes it's harder than other times. I have to say, sometimes like if I'm like that. I'm generally a really nice person and a lovely wife and everything. But if I get upset, I switch immediately to like, I can't even bring up the positive emotions.
Like, I think because we're Geminis,
yeah,
and there's this other person inside who's like,
it's like, I can't stand
yeah,
I can't stand you, and it's so weird because that's nonsense. But then you need to understand, and that's when taking charge of yourself is. You need to understand that your mind is going to say things, and not everything that your mind says is true. Not all your thoughts are true. So when you're angry at the person, understand that that's not the truth, and that the ego plays such a big role here, and that we don't want to be run by our ego. We want to be run by our true selves. So there is a lot of communication that's necessary for relationships to thrive and to be happy. And we're going to talk about communication in our next episode.
I want to say something here about ego, because I think what stops people from getting an argument over with is ego. I think, at least from my perspective, I mean, you don't want to admit you're wrong. In a relationship, you just don't want to be wrong, and you want to be right, whether it's the male or the female, or I don't know, but I'm talking from the standpoint of a guy. And I think discovering each other early on, I mean, understanding who we really are, and understanding that we're both basically nice people, fundamentally kind-hearted people, sort of lets you sometimes be more willing to put your ego aside and say, okay, I can say sorry, or I can admit that I'm wrong to this person. My ego may be up there somewhere with most other people, but when it comes to my spouse, this is the one person where I'm willing to be vulnerable, and I think one needs to first of all get to an understanding of what the other person is like, so that you are getting married to somebody you truly believe is genuinely a nice, kind-hearted person. Therefore, you don't need to win. I mean, when you win, who loses? Think about it. I mean, so yeah,
yeah. The other thing is, that's a really good point, and if we take it even further, it isn't about winning and losing. It's about the relationship, right? The marriage winning, right? So if we're thinking about, if we can get out of our heads and off our high horses and all that, and think about the marriage winning, then the marriage doesn't win because one of us wins and the other one loses. The marriage wins when we can communicate and reach sort of a win-win, or at least a peace, right? Then the marriage wins. So I think that is also another thing to keep in mind as you're trying to tell yourself, okay, I don't need to win because this person I can be myself with, I can be real, I can be vulnerable. That's true. And you can also add to that, and also let me think about the us and not just the me, and get the us to win. And so if we're both thinking about how the us can win, then I think we're more likely. One
more thing I'd like to add here is when I think again of a happy marriage, it is to me when we can both thrive individually. So be it at work, if it's our careers, so we're both able to, being with each other, help each other succeed in our careers, help each other succeed in most areas of our life that are important to us, and succeed, part of which is this relationship. So because I don't want people to misunderstand that the relationship is more important than yourself, so you end up accepting a lot of things that you wouldn't normally do because you want the relationship to succeed. No, a successful relationship is where you're both able to succeed in whatever areas of your life that are important to you. Then it is a successful relationship.
Yes, exactly. No, that's good that you mentioned that. That's a very good point, of course. Yeah, so you're not settling.
No.
And you're not settling by wanting the relationship to win instead of you. So that's a very good point, because that could be misunderstood.
Yeah.
So no, you are fully supportive and in service of yourself as a person, and then also to the other person and to the relationship. Very good point as well.
Mm-hmm.
So I think we've painted a pretty clear picture of what we think a happy marriage is like. And I'd like to, unless you have anything else to say,
No.
at the end of today's episode, I'd like us to get practical. In fact, at the end of every episode, I'd like to get some practical, an exercise to do, for example, something to actually do, so that it's not all theory. So what I'd like to suggest as an exercise for anybody who's listening in is to make 2 lists, okay? And if you can get your spouse to also make the 2 lists, that's great. And then compare the 2 lists in a nice light conversation. And the 2 lists are a list of the things that make you happy as an individual, a list of the things that you enjoy, a list of the things that give you a sense of purpose, and then another list of the things that you enjoy doing together as a couple, in your opinion. So I enjoy doing these things with Ismail. I enjoy this, that, this, okay? So I can write down my list as well. And then Ismail makes his own list of the things that he enjoys maybe doing alone, and the things he enjoys doing together as a couple. And then we compare those lists. When we compare those lists, we get to understand and know each other. We get to maybe align some of the things we want to do together. And then maybe there's something that's just really important to the other person that isn't something that you want to do. And that's okay too. Then we can give space for each other to do those things. Like when you used to go off and play golf. Sure. Which for the very beginning I was having, because I was still having separation anxiety, and I used to feel like I need to spend all my time with Ismail.
It's also a very time-consuming game. So
it takes hours.
Yeah.
However, I got over that, and how did I get over that? By finding my own things that I enjoy doing that I don't need to do with Ismail, so that then we can separately do things that we enjoy, and then come together and do other things that we enjoy together. So I just think it's a useful exercise if you'd like to do it, because it allows for room and space for individuality and for togetherness. Because in the end, when you're in a relationship, you are an individual in the relationship. There are times when you're going to be alone, and there are times when you're going to be together. The times that you are going to be alone can either be lonely and boring, and that's really up to you. It's a choice, because our alone times are just us. That's just us in life. We can make that what we want. I did for a long time make those alone times lonely or boring or whatever, and that was just on me though, and I didn't know that then. I didn't realize that that's up to me. That part of our time as a couple is up to me. And then the time, when we come together as a couple, I also was kind of sabotaging that with my expectations. But then, it took years. But then now it's been like 15 years of much more synergy than we've ever had. And even more and more in the last 5 years, after we understood as well the building blocks of communication, like through NLP especially. And of course we'll talk about that as well in the future episode. So if you guys like that exercise, go ahead, make your 2 lists, compare them, and allow room to listen to each other and to help each other thrive, separately, individually, and as a couple.
Great advice.
Yeah? Okay, great. So thanks for watching.
Thank you.
If you've been watching us on YouTube, please subscribe, like, comment, share any questions, anything that you want to share with us. And if you've been listening in on Apple, Spotify, Google, and Remy, wherever, please subscribe as well. Rate if there's rating there. Just reach out. We're here, and we'll see you in the next episode.
See you next time.